This is A New Angle, conversations about how we're doing and where we're going. I'm your host, Justin Angle. This show is supported by the Headwaters Foundation, First Security Bank, and the University of Montana College of Business. Bryce, Parent Trap. This is our monthly opportunity to discuss our misadventures in parenting. Do you have a parent trap this month?
All right, so I think I'm going to build on where we've just been.
Yeah.
It is June. It's Father's Day.
This could go in any direction. Build on where we've just been.
I want to make the case for parenting.
Oh, all
I want
right.
to make the case for fatherhood.
Yeah.
This is the month of Father's Day. And I think many of our problems, particularly among 20-year-olds, are due to the fact that they're not having kids.
Mm.
You know, so a lot of people have made this point. This is not a unique observation, but like one of the things that changes really quickly once you have kids is things stop being about you.
Yeah.
There's no more navel gazing, right? About you and slights to you and your goals. And, you know, it kind of, particularly when the kids are young, you just don't have you have no bandwidth for that, right? You are literally just living moment of diaper change to diaper change, feeding to napping to sleeping. And you're just basically like, I'm just trying to persist here.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's really healthy. Right. And then as they get older, some of that goes away and you have time and time comes back to you and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of, so, I mean, there's kind of seemingly trivial, but actually quite important stuff. Like when you have kids, there's a pretty good chance that you're not going to fall subject to the antisocial sentry at the same level. Because your kids draw you into communities where you have to interact with other people.
It's a forcing mechanism.
Right? Like I spent the weekend standing around waiting for soccer matches to start. And what am I going to do? Just stand over in the corner by myself? I do that during the game so that I can mutter under my breath.
Stats.
But like, before the game when it's all warm-ups and we're just kind of like a half an hour to kill, like, I'm going to go talk to the other parents. Right. And, we're going to have like real conversations. Right. Because we have 35, 40 minutes to kill. Right. We might as well be sitting in a coffee shop. Right. What are you going to end up talking about? Like your childhood, your spirit, your kids, all the kind of stuff. Right. And so, you get drawn into communities. Right. Whether it's, it's back to school night at the elementary school and, look at all the people that I'm bumping into and, whatever kid activities you're involved in, or look, you just have to converse with your parents' friends because of coordination stuff.
Yeah.
Your kids' the parents of your kids' friends. Right. So there's that, but then, and then you eventually get to real meaning, right? Like, it turns out that whatever you thought you were achieving and how much you enjoyed whatever you achieved, it really pales in comparison to watching your kids achieve things.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm a highly successful person. I have achieved a lot of things that a lot of people would like to achieve or want their kids to achieve.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, my kids aren't even at the point where they've achieved anything real yet. Right. But it's more satisfying watching them, overcome things. And, I saw this quote yesterday. I don't want to butcher it, but it's something like, confidence doesn't come from telling your kids they're great. It comes from them doing hard things and, succeeding at them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's true.
Yep.
Right. Like, like I don't get meaning from being like patting you on the head and saying good job. I get meaning from watching you do something difficult. Right. And achieve it.
Yeah.
Like, and we're talking about like elementary, middle, and high school level. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like, when they're older. Hopefully they'll achieve something. Right. But like,
I think that's quite likely,
and ultimately I think what I'm observing from the people that are even older than me, the most meaningful thing that you can do like is then produce like grandchildren.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so, you're missing, to the extent that I think people, again, they get trapped in that because we've extended it so long. Right. You start to say, well, I can't disrupt this comfortable life that I have. Right. And, what we're learning. What we're learning is, so having small children really does tax you. Right. It's a burden. And
in fairness, people report lower levels of happiness immediately in, the early days of parenthood.
There's stress there, but when you look over a long term, right? Like your brain stays younger.
Hmm.
You have a built-in social network, like typically, obviously, it depends on the kind of parent you are, and the relationships you establish. But on average, most people remain connected with their children, and that helps keep them younger and it keeps them connected. We know that social connections are vital to
Yep.
long-term health. And so you get those benefits. And so you get these really long-term things that play out. And so I know it's uncouth to try and tell people that, how to live their life, but I do think a lot of people are making a mistake when they don't have kids. And because now it's being, I also thought that people were making a mistake by spending so much time staring at screens. Now that we know that those are linked, right? It's like, okay, we need to
Yeah.
let's get you off of your screen, get you back into the world and get you having kids that you say you want to have. And yes, it will be hard, right? But what is it? Nothing worth doing is easy, or I can't remember what the quote is, but yes, it's hard, and um,
But that's kind of the point.
it's kind of the point,
Yeah.
right? And look, and it's also kind of important to understand, right? Like a lot of times, we shouldn't, there's lots of people who shouldn't have kids, and
Yeah.
but like at levels of where we were a few years ago, right? Child abuse is down over 50% from 1992 to like 2008, or maybe 13. I can't remember. I mean, adverse childhood experiences, those are, I think, down 57%, right?
Wow.
Like, modern parenting, we have more resources than we used to have. We are
Yeah.
richer than we used to be,
Yeah.
right? We have a whole bunch of knowledge and technology that help make things easier, right? So, like, the experience of children, like, not having the same kind of, my parents were awful and I got abused a bunch. Like, yeah, that happens and it's awful when it happens, but it is way less common than it used to be. Right. And so let's get more people like getting from a purely selfish perspective.
Yeah.
Stop making a mistake when it comes to, and look, if you think you'll be a terrible parent and you'll be a terrible parent, maybe don't be a parent. But for, if you're at all at the margin, there's a margin of people who are like, maybe like, I don't know, I think you're missing out, because my own experience and what I'm seeing from lots of literature suggests that, yeah, parenting is not an easy thing to do, but I think it's something that we're naturally supposed to do.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of our modern problems are related to the lack of parent, not being a parent,
Yeah.
right? And collectively also to not, being around kids enough, right? Like, I think when another bad thing that happens when you don't have enough kids in the world is people are like, well, then kids shouldn't be around, right? This is the common, you shouldn't bring kids on an airplane.
Sure.
Like, I literally saw something recently that was like, we should be able to ban kids from certain restaurants. And it's like, I mean, no, we need to go back to like, kids are just part of life. And we all need to basically have the muscle to know, oh, my job as part of a community is to accept that, judge the ones that I don't like because I want that into the world, right? Like, oh, yeah,
Right.
I think you're doing that wrong because you're antisocial or whatever it is. But also then be like, yeah, I have a role here, which is partially tolerating that, which is sometimes you got to be, the person who smiles at the crying baby on the plane, right?
Or helps out.
Yeah, or helps out. Like, like, oh, your kid's crying. Like, I mean, I remember having my own kids. It was like, here, why don't you try my toys?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's like, oh, great. Like, yeah, they needed different toys. There's a new book that they haven't ever seen. Like, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, but that's all part of a positive, communal, cooperative society.
So is it fair to summarize your position as, we've landed with a lot of the problems we've discussed on these incentives and instincts episodes. We land at a place where we say, we just need better humans. And it seems like the premise of your plea is that kids make us better humans.
I think they do.
Yeah, well
right?
put.
I think they do. I think, they are healthy for us as individuals, but
Yeah.
you also, and again, part of, we need better culture to support parents and to support all the things and all that kind of stuff. But, I care about my kids' friends, right? Like I am invested in
Yeah.
their success as
Yeah.
well, right? Like, and to the extent that at some point I may have something to offer them, I hope that I am,
Sure.
in a position to do that.
Yeah. Okay, my parent trap is not as high-minded. So we'll just disclose that.
Maybe.
Let's talk about how to think about when your kid, and I'm not outing anybody in particular, my kids or anybody else's kids, or nothing specific here. I'm just running out some hypotheticals. But at some point your kid is going to make contact with alcohol or a situation in which alcohol is there. And I'm sort of trying to think this through. There's the scenario where it's sort of like, don't ask, the kids go off and do their thing. They somehow acquire alcohol. They meet at an undisclosed location, do whatever they do. And I don't want to hear about it. However, at the same time, like I've told my daughter, like, or daughters, like, if you ever need help, you got to let me know, and no questions asked, I will be there. So there's that scenario. There's the scenario where there's a party and some parents are there, and the parents are aware that there's alcohol, but they're just kind of like, hey, whatever goes down in the basement, that's fine. And then there's this other genre in which there's a party and the parents supply the alcohol. I've heard tell of all flavors of this across this range, and I'm trying to get my head around a framework. The parents supplying the alcohol, that feels like, my initial sensation is revulsion. Like, that's not okay. I don't want my kids anywhere near that. But if you press on that a little bit, it's like, actually, is that the right position? Is that a safer position when you have a controlled setting than it is when you're like, I don't want to know what's going on. You guys just do your thing and figure it out.
Yeah, I'm a little bit younger than you, so we're not as far down this
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm certainly with you in the instinct of, no, I don't think that's right. Part of me also doesn't think it's right because I think part of adolescence is supposed to be transgressive. You're supposed to be sneaking around and doing things.
I mean, you learn a lot through doing that. Some of those lessons can be very hard.
That said, there's the glib joke of, well, what are kids even drinking these days? I thought that was over.
Yeah.
But no, it's not. I know it's not. But yeah, it's tough, right? Because the appeal of the controlled environment is okay. I guess it's a controlled environment.
Yeah.
Or at least a sort of controlled environment.
Yes.
Right. It's not a lab. And the problem is that the concern is that, yeah, I mean, it'd be one thing if we said, okay, we're gonna, set up this place and we're gonna have a bunch of like social worker types and nurses and it'll be an actually controlled environment.
Sure. Yeah.
I think the concern is that when the parents supply the alcohol, like they supplied the alcohol and a place to consume it, but it's not clear that what's kind of supervision is happening along with it.
Yeah.
And alcohol is not great. It does do things to you. It does lead to some lapses in judgment.
Mhm.
So there's as somebody who did not drink in their youth, it's a really weird thing for me to get my head around how to deal with this, because it was just like, no, of course you don't do that. That's illegal. Why would you break the rules?
There's that. Yeah. I mean, where I'm landing on this is I am reticent to I would not make the choice as a parent myself to host a party and supply alcohol. For some reason, that just doesn't, whatever ethical code I have, that does not comport with that set of activities. Yet at the same time, I don't necessarily want to condemn somebody for choosing to do that. I'm uncomfortable with my kids in a setting like that. At the same time, what I'm really after with my kids is complete, open, and honest communication. I mean, and I got this advice from a parent who's a little older than us, whose kids have kind of advanced through the stage, and his piece of advice was like, look, there's 3 categories of things that can have life-changing consequences that you can't undo. So sex, cars, drugs, and alcohol. And be very careful.
The fact that they mix together so wonderfully.
Yeah, the interactive effects are not great. But like in those 3 categories of things, like just be very careful because you can make a mistake that could alter the outcome of your life in a way that's very difficult to recover from. So within that, I've told my kids, like, I want to get to a place where we can have complete communication, that if you are ever in any kind of scenario where you need help, that you can feel completely comfortable calling me at any time without the fear of any consequence in that moment. There might be consequence down the road. We might have to revisit it, but you are safe to ask for help under any circumstance. I mean, I think that's kind of what I want to get to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Like, like again, the main reason you're concerned about this is because of the risk.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if this were not risky or low risky, like whatever. Like my kids do lots of things that are risky.
Sure.
Right? But like, yeah, it's like, oh, I don't want you to. I'm not concerned about like, being obnoxious because you drank too much. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's not.
I'm concerned about you ending up in the Clark Fork River.
Yes. Like, like
in somebody's room that you shouldn't be in,
yeah,
or any
whatever it is. Yeah.
Outcomes.
It's the, like, as somebody who was around people who were drunk, in college or whatnot, like most of what was happening was to a sober person slightly obnoxious and weird,
but harmless,
but not something that was at putting them or others at really any risk.
Yeah.
Just them thinking I was judging them, which maybe I wasn't. I don't know.
It's okay.
But it's just like, fine, whatever. You're at a house party and like, you're just kind of chatty or whatever it is. But yeah, it's then like, oh, I don't want you getting into a car like that. I don't want you like, whatever. And so that's the, what you have to then, I mean, that's what good policy then becomes, right? Like, it's like, okay, I've identified the specific set of things I'm trying to avoid, right? And then it's a question of what helps me understand how to avoid that specific situation, right? And, the easy one is, hey, just don't drink, right? Unfortunately, that's maybe not realistic given whatever peer pressure or culture you're in, but like, okay, then maybe second best is, okay, if you're going to drink, like make sure you understand that, like, know your limits, right? Like, you can manage that if you want to. Or maybe I'm just thinking about that because it's not hard for me to manage.
Well,
right?
and whatever, you don't know your limits until you find them. So that's part of the process too. I think another huge part of this is develop good friendships and, never leave your wingman, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But yeah, but it's not so much about, I think, the setting, right? Like, cause you got to be able to handle all 3 of those settings.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like my framing of the setting is the challenge to navigate. I think that's less.
It's the challenge for me to navigate. Like, and yeah, I'm not throwing parties with alcohol. Like, it's not going to happen at my house.
Yeah.
But to the extent that what you're saying is that I'm worried about these risks. And so then, but yeah, that's where you can basically be like, look, this is what we're concerned about. Right. And yeah, it's not like even a majority of the time that bad things happen. Right. And that's what makes it.
But those 3 categories, like those are the 3 categories where it can only take one.
That's right.
And I think,
where you're like, look, we're trying to make sure that you avoid this life-changing thing.
Yeah.
And so let's work with how do you, what are the steps along the process? But yeah, like particularly from, for both genders, actually, like both sexes, like make sure that somebody is taking care of you.
Yeah.
Right. And, that's where things go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. is when the community breaks down.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, as annoying as us sober people can be, like, that's where we can be really helpful. Right. We will make sure you get home. Right.
Yeah.
I was the permanent designated driver. Like, you know,
Yeah.
everybody knew I wasn't drinking.
Find your Bryce,
Like,
and rely on Bryce because he's reliable.
But you know, and if to the extent that everybody is drinking some, well, try and make sure that, like, you know, your friend group includes at least somebody who's less likely to get out of control, and make sure that there's somebody who will, you know, they keep their eye out.
Yeah.
Like, let's make sure like everybody's okay, you know, because that's really the key, right? Is that you've got to have, you know, a collective unit that is kept their head about them sufficiently that bad stuff is less likely to happen, right? Again,
that's fair. Hopefully we've kept our heads about ourselves. We've covered a lot of ground in this one, Bryce. Yeah, I look forward to the next one. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, experience, and giving a shout out for fatherhood.
That's right. Like,
to all you fathers out there, hopefully the Parent Trap provides some value, and hopefully you have a wonderful Father's Day this June. And, you know, thanks to the moms out there too, because you guys are the best.
That's right. That's right. It's all, it takes both.
It does. All right. Thanks. Thanks for listening to A New Angle. If you like what we do and want to support us directly, please consider a subscription at anewanglepodcast.com. A New Angle is recorded at Studio 49, a generous gift from UM alums Michelle and Lauren Hansen. Our presenting sponsor is the Headwaters Foundation, working side by side with Western Montanans to improve the health of our communities. We are also supported by First Security Bank and the University of Montana College of Business, with additional help from CED, Drum Coffee, and Montana Public Radio. Keely Larson is our producer. John Brownell, Jeff Ament, and John Wicks made our music. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.